Time having arrived, I call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order for today, May 20th, 7 p.m. If you could just please rise and help salute our beautiful flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, councilors and guests, welcome to our FinCom. I've heard from Councilor Nicastro, who's not doing very well tonight. She's a little under the weather. And the rest of them, I hope they will show up.
Feeling much better.
Councilman Minichiello, welcome. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, with that, number one, please.
Item 1, we have the acceptance of the minutes of the May 6, 2024 Finance Committee meeting.
That will be accepted and placed on file.
We have the appointment of the following retired officers as special police officers: Charles J. Cassiani, Jr., Andrew Cesarini, Hermer E. Cole, William Healy, Thomas Keating, Kenneth Lostrom, Donald J. Mills, Jr., Callie H. Royster, Jr., Robert Smith, and Scott D. Ullman. Invited guests, the retired Brockton police officers, as just listed.
Well. Councilors, anybody have any particular question, or we want anything?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
A motion has been properly made and properly seconded to recommend favorably. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? It carries. Thank you, and thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
Item 3, we have the reappointment of Mr. Steve Lanus of Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Zoning Board of Appeals for a 3-year term ending May 2027. Invited, Mr. Steve Lanus.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
The poor guy was sitting there getting ready to get up, but I guess a motion has been properly made and second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you for your service, sir, and please continue to serve our city.
Item 4, we have the reappointment of Mr. Matthew Stanton of Brockton, Mass. as a member of the Brockton Beautification Committee for a 3-year term ending May 2027. Invited, Mr. Matthew Stanton.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
A motion has been properly made and second on the motion.
On the motion. You guys know I'll talk. Got to give the man an opportunity to speak. I mean, he came all this way. So just obviously, Matt, you've been doing a great job as chairman of the Beautification Committee. The city just conducted its annual Keep Brockton Beautiful Day on Saturday. It was, I think, one of the best turnouts we've had in a decade. I mean, there was over 200 people who volunteered to help clean our city on Saturday. They fanned out all over the city. I don't know how many bags were picked up during that time, but I'm sure a lot.
I know it's more than we've ever had to pick up.
More than we've ever had to pick up before. So that's a testament to your leadership, a testament to the residents of Brockton and their love for our city and their desire to serve our community in this way. So all in all, it was a great day, and we appreciate your efforts in leading that great event.
It's my pleasure just to be a part of it. Like you said, it falls on the residents. I was really happy to be a part of it. The amount of people that showed up, senior citizens, young adults. I worked with a group up at Brockton High. I had talked to the athletic director up at Brockton High, not about Keep Brockton Beautiful Day in particular, but maybe working together in the future. And he got over a dozen students from Brockton High up on a Saturday morning up there to clean the campus. I believe the George School did as well. If I remember correctly, I heard somebody registering at Heights Crossing. All the sponsors, Heights Crossing, everybody involved, Suffolk, Republic, I believe. It's a great thing. The Beautification Committee, the members currently will be coming before you, I think, for renewal as well. It's a really great group. We really want to, I don't want to say test the limits, but the sky's the limit with where we want to go. We want to engage the community. That's what it's all about. It's what it's been about all this past year, and we want to continue that moving forward.
I too want to echo the sentiments of Councilor Thompson. The hamburger and the hot dog was pretty good too.
Yeah, half-pounders or something. There was some big boys.
They were pretty thick. I can attest to that.
I do have to thank also Jersey Mike's, the students from Brockton High obviously wouldn't be able to travel to Heights Crossing, so Jersey Mike's donated food for the students at Brockton High.
Nice.
So I got these
Awesome.
twice.
Perfect.
Which was great.
A motion, anything else, councilors?
No?
Motion has been properly made and properly second to recommend this favorably. All those in favor of its recommendation? Anyone opposed? Thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr.
very
Stanton.
much.
Mr. Clerk.
Item 5, we have the appointment of Mr. Matthew Gallagher of Brockton, Mass. to the Brockton Planning Board for a 5-year term ending May 2029. Invited, Mr. Matthew Gallagher.
Mr. Gallagher, welcome.
Yes. Thank you very much for seeing me today. I appreciate your time.
Just, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Mr. Gallagher. Just maybe a little bit about your background and your maybe experience that helps, prepare you for the planning board and why are you stepping forward to serve in this role?
I went through the process of converting a pre-existing non-conforming four-family in the town of Stoughton, and it brought me to the zoning board and the planning board, and I became very passionate about that. So that brought me here.
So
In Stoke.
you did this through Stoughton. You now reside in Brockton, I assume.
Correct.
And so that experience kind of just got you interested in that type of process, and now you like to do the same for the city.
Yes, Councilor.
Great. Well, we appreciate that.
Cool. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Councilor Dorian Court.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Really quick, is this your first appointment
Yes.
on a
Yes,
board like
Councilor.
this?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Anybody else? I would like to entertain a motion.
Motion to recommend favorably?
Second.
Motion has been properly made in second. All those in favor of its recommendation? Anyone opposed? It carries, and thank you for volunteering for this.
Good luck, sir. Thank you.
Number 6.
Item number 6, ordered that the following named sum be, and the same is hereby transferred, as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $337,500 from Cable Revolving Fund to Mayor Cable Access. This transfer will be used to restore funds to cover city obligated expenses. Invited, Mr. Joseph Miranda, Mr. Scott Mercer, Mayor Robert Sullivan, and CFO Troy Clarkson. And I believe Mr. Miranda Officer Miranda is working tonight.
Mr. Mercer.
Good evening, Council. Any questions?
Councilor Afawa.
Well, both to Mr. Mercer and to Mr. Clarkson, I was the one who made a motion to reduce the BCA payment. We do have a 10-year agreement that was signed in 2019. However, I will say to both of you gentlemen that obviously technology changes, the needs of the city change, and you would be surprised how many people actually watch city government meetings, because if I'm food shopping, people will come up to me and talk about an issue and say, I watched it on cable. The number of people who watch it on YouTube is kind of misleading. It's actually much greater than that. Of all of the nonprofits that we have in the city, I don't know of another one to which we would give $650,000 without spelling out on a year-to-year basis what we would like in return. And some of the things I'd like in return would be for BCA to commit to monitoring our meeting schedule and to ensure that we have people properly assigned to cover meetings. I know there was one meeting here which, if it weren't for Leandra, I don't think it would have been covered because it wasn't on the schedule at BCA. I'd like to have a full and free communication between the city and Mr. Mercer and BCA on any technical issues that might interrupt our broadcasts, so that we don't have what we had in the past with hesitation when people were watching and a couple of seconds delay in some of the meetings. So I'm certainly in favor of this recommendation. I am in favor of reauthorizing, but I will say that between now and budget time, I would like to have the law department and a couple of councilors and maybe Mr. Mercer and Mr. Clarkson get together and let's spell out exactly what we want from July 1st through June 30th, 2025. I just think that's a prudent thing to do. It's a lot of money. We don't just give out that kind of money to any organization without expecting some things in return. And I do think if we work collaboratively back and forth, we will have a much improved lines of communication as well as programming for our residents. So I will be voting in favor of both of these, but just wanted both of you gentlemen to know I'm looking forward to working something out as an addendum to the agreement for the next fiscal year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kind of piggybacking from Councilor Farwell. I know I see Leandra predominantly in the booth in the back, and she does an amazing job, very responsive and professional in her job. Who is is there a city council liaison or a city council manager? If there were ever any issues, who do we contact?
Sure. Let me just clear a couple of things up. Leandra is the government access producer.
Okay.
Mike Simmons is the contact who comes over and sets everything up. You can always reach me directly, but Leandra is the person who produces every meeting. I'm not sure of what meeting you speak of that we missed or if Leandra wasn't here, but we always cover every government meeting because, as I always like to say, government meeting is the best reality TV on TV. So I understand that there are viewers who do watch. It is a priority, government, education, then public, just so you're aware. As far as any technical issues, this equipment is not our equipment. City Hall owns this equipment. We manage the equipment. The issues that were in the past came from internally here that we identified and resolved here. The education producer is assigned as one individual who covers all the school committee meetings, and then we have a staff of 4 who cover public access, support membership activity, and things of that nature.
Okay. I appreciate that. And I think Councilor Farwell is correct in just kind of understanding what our needs are to better inform you for the things that we'd like to see covered both in this room and throughout the city. So we look forward to that conversation.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Scott, I think what Councilor Farwell was referring to is about 6 months ago. And the only reason why Leandra came is because she works at the association, and I'm picking up my stuff to come to a meeting.
Yeah.
And she says, "Where you're going?" I said, "I'm going to a council meeting." And she said, "But there's no council meeting tonight because there's nobody scheduled."
Yeah.
I think you might have been on vacation or some sort of that's what the issue was.
No, I was here, but we were notified. We weren't notified of the meeting. So there was we generally both look on the website and/or we receive notification of the meeting.
But our meetings are usually the first Monday
yep.
for FinCom, the third Monday for FinCom.
Correct.
Second Monday for City Council, and the fourth Monday for City Council.
Yep.
Once in a while, when we have a fifth Monday,
Yes.
we usually have that one off.
Okay.
Unless there's some sort of holiday Monday or so, then
Sure.
we'll go to Tuesday.
Right.
So as far as scheduling is concerned, it's probably one of the easiest schedules to schedule.
Yes, it is.
It repeats on a regular basis.
And to that point, yeah, a simple email for notification to us would be great. And again, Mike checks the website to see when the meeting schedule is. We schedule it out as we see it, and then if we get a notification, like even for tonight. So.
You want me to?
Go ahead.
That particular meeting, Mike Simmons, Mike has been who I deal with most of the time. Diane does notify cable. We have 3 contact people over there, Leandra, Robin. Since that meeting, Mike Simmons was on vacation and did miss that there was a meeting. We scrambled that night, and because Leandra was available, it got covered. Every meeting in this chamber by this council is covered automatically. My office is on a regular contact basis. That does not concern planning board, zoning board, anything else we don't handle. Because occasionally I do get a call from BCA about an issue in the GAR room or whatever. I don't get involved in that because that's not, but it is a problem that we need to address, and I have talked to the mayor about it, is there is a gray area where we own the equipment, but we don't have any television technicians on the city staff, so it's a problem. IT is very good at trying to react, but it's a problem because they don't have the expertise. They do. It's a little bit of a gray area that we are trying to address, and hopefully we can before the budget, next budget.
Just as a follow-up, and I don't know when you arrived, Mr. Mercer, but I think it was the city primary of 2021, and I don't think there was any coverage on BCA at all. And the other issue is that the graphics, when there is an election night, I have to tell you, there should be some means of having an updated vote count for the different positions that are on the ballot. I think this last election for councilors at large, I think we waited until about 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night to even know what the vote total was. So certainly someone with graphics design capability could come up with something that you could plug the numbers into as they come in from each ward and precinct, and then have a running total, because really the residents appreciate it. They really do, and I think working together we can improve the product that we're putting out for everyone.
And just to address those two bullets, it was prior to me arriving. I arrived after the 2021, but I was made fully aware of that election not being covered. Excuse me, every election since then has been covered. We do have graphics. We do keep the graphics updated. We get them from the polls, so we have to wait until they're actually accurate before we put them up. But we do put them up, and they're on YouTube if you want to look back. But we constantly have worked on creating graphics and inputting graphics as they come in. We have a show where we have 3 different pundits or hosts who talk about what's happening, what to look for, and those are updated live while the elections are going on.
And I agree with that. I would just say that if you put up a vote total for a ward council race, the votes that came in for councilor at large in that ward and precinct should certainly be accurate, and they could go on. But again, my interest is improving what we provide to the residents, because it is their money. It's a franchise fee that's passed on to them, and it's quite a bit of money to run, to run our programming, 650 grand. And so anytime we can improve things, Mr. Chairman, I'm in favor of it.
I agree.
Thank you.
Well, Scott, as I've told you before, we are, in this city, we are not so fortunate to have Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 7, Channel whatever. We rely on BCA.
Yes.
For a lot of our information and programming in the sense. And I think what you're hearing here is the importance that we put on that channel or on BCA itself. And that's why we want to make sure that, it looks better and better, getting better and growing every single day of the year in this sense. That's
Thank you. Yeah, and I hope it is, because I've been here 2 years now, and hopefully there have been improvements that are seen. I can tell you we cover over 130 events a month in terms of activities inside and outside the studio, which is up quite a bit from where it was before. But hopefully viewers are seeing it. I do get feedback that things are good, and I get feedback when they're not, so we'll continue to work with you to improve them. So.
I would entertain a motion.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
A motion has been properly made in second to recommend favorably. All those in favor of the motion? Anyone opposed? It carries. Thank you much for being here.
Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, sir.
Number 7, Mr. Clerk.
Ordered that the City Council reauthorize the Comcast Revolving Fund for fiscal year '25 from all cash receipts from Comcast franchise fees in excess of $675,000 pursuant to the cable license contract, and that further, that the expenditure from this fund shall not exceed $750,000 without further appropriation during fiscal year 2025. Invited Mr. Joseph Miranda, Mr. Scott Mercer, Mayor Robert Sullivan, and CFO Troy Clarkson.
Mr. CFO, since you got up, you're on.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. If you'll indulge me, I'll speak generally about this in the next several items, but I'm happy to answer questions on this or any of the revolving funds. Every year, we appear before you and ask you to renew our revolving funds each year, and so this is the annual vote to make these funds available for their varied purposes. This particular one, as was just stated under the last article, is the fund that receives the excess beyond that $675,000, which is actually part of the mayor's budget. All of the additional funds from the Comcast contract go into this fund. And as per the annual renewal, the mayor is empowered, authorized to spend up to $750,000 from that fund without further appropriation from the City Council. Anything more than that requires a vote of the council. So just so you know, the current balance in that Comcast revolving fund is $1,244,755. That number is constantly changing because the monies come in on a regular basis to the city. We will be appropriating that $337 out of that fund to pay the balance of our obligation to BCA, so that will be reduced by that amount. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Motion to recommend favorably.
On the motion.
Let me get a second first.
Second.
A second. On the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And good evening, Troy, Mr. Clarkson. So after this transfer, approximately that $900,000, could you talk about some of the things that the monies were spent on for this past fiscal year that did not come before the council? I know there was something regarding Brockton High in the auditorium, but I believe we had a vote and then we actually postponed that vote or took it off or tabled it or something. There was, if memory serves, it was $850,000 before us and then we tabled it. Could you just give us an update on that, and what other, were there any other projects paid for through this fund throughout the year that did not come before us?
I will get a specific answer for you on exactly what has been expended, but I'll speak in generalities, that which I know about. There was a large project at the high school to fix the sound and the cameras in the large auditorium. And so that project's been going on for a couple of years. From time to time, there are smaller expenditures out of the fund when there are other cameras throughout the city or any repairs to the infrastructure here in this room and as was noted in the GAR room. So those are the kinds of repairs in my tenure that have been made. I'll have to check, Councilor, is specifically what the expense has been thus far this fiscal year, but I'll gladly get that for you.
I appreciate that. So the actual repairs to the big auditorium at Brockton High, that's still ongoing then?
It is. It is still ongoing, yes.
Do we have an estimated completion?
I don't, but again, I'll be glad to get that from the folks at the schools for you.
Great. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Clarkson. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. A motion has been, anybody else has anything else? A motion has been properly made in second. All those in favor of the appropriation? The
reauthorization, yeah.
all those opposed? It carries. Thank you, sir. Next item, sir.
Item 8, ordered that the City Council reauthorize the Demolition Revolving Fund for the purpose of helping to fund costs in connection with demolition of buildings in the City of Brockton. The fund shall receive the receipt of payments of all demolition charges of the City of Brockton. Expenditures from the Demolition Revolving Fund shall be made on the authority and direction of the building superintendent with the written approval of the mayor, provided that no more than $110,000 may be so expended without further appropriation from the Demolition Revolving Fund during fiscal year 25. The building superintendent shall comply with reporting requirements of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and 1/2. Invited, Building Commissioner James Plouffe, Mayor Robert Sullivan, CFO Troy Clarkson.
Mr. Commissioner?
Mr. Chair, councilors, the first one here is the demolition revolving account, and speaks for itself. We have about $24,000 right now in the account, and we haven't demolished any buildings this year, this fiscal year, and hopefully we don't have to do it in the future. But this is just to help us supplement anything we have in our regular budget.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Second.
No questions?
I just, what was that number again? You said 24,000?
Yes, 24,000, that's correct.
Thank you. You good, Councilor?
Good.
Motion has been properly made in second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? It carries. Thank you, sir. I guess you're staying right there, right?
Yes.
Item number 9, ordered that the City Council reauthorize the vacant and abandoned buildings revolving fund for the purpose of maintaining the abandoned building registry, as well as the closing, boarding up, and care of vacant and abandoned buildings. The vacant and abandoned building revolving fund shall receive the receipt of payments of fines and fees for the registration of vacant and abandoned buildings. Expenditures from the vacant and abandoned buildings revolving fund shall be made on the authority and direction of the building superintendent, provided that no more than $250,000 may be so expended without further appropriation from the vacant and abandoned building revolving fund during the fiscal year 25. Excuse me. The building superintendent shall comply with the reporting requirements of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and 1/2. Inviting Building Commissioner James Plouffe, Mayor Robert Sullivan, CFO Troy Clarkson.
Mr. Commissioner.
Mr. Chair and councilors, this is the vacant and abandoned building fund we've had for a number of years. We use it for vacant buildings, take them down, board them up, and we assess fees yearly. Currently, we have about 168 on the registry, and we are, through our limited numbers of people in our office, going around finding those as we do our other code enforcement duties.
Motion to recommend favorably?
Second.
Motion has been properly made in second. On the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Commissioner Plouffe. So I know over the last few years we've been putting a lot of effort into the vacant and abandoned building list, trying to get that updated. You know, we had some problems in the past of people being on that list when they were in fact occupied. Can you tell me what's the status of that? That 168 that you just mentioned, do you believe that's a fair and accurate number at this point?
I do. One of my building inspectors, who is doing a lot more building inspections right now as opposed to vacant and abandoned stuff, did personally go to a lot of these, most of the buildings, and observe them being occupied and not occupied. And we've removed people off of the list for those. And he's handled a lot of the appeals also. We administratively remove them.
Okay, so how many appeals have we had, if you remember, over this last fiscal year?
I don't have off the top of my head. I'm saying a couple dozen, if that. Yeah, and the appeals have been backed up a little bit because we were using an attorney in the law office, and the attorneys have switched over. But nowadays we're not seeing as many, so we've done a lot better with going after the list.
Good. I'd like to see it probably below a dozen. I think that would be, you know, some evidence that we're on top of it. But I do appreciate the effort. What was the total in this fund, if you remember?
1.2 million, just over.
1.2. And what are some of the things that 1.2 is used for?
Well, for example, not this past fiscal year, but the previous fiscal year, we took down a number of buildings with that amount of money. With money from this fund. We took down a portion of 69 North Montello, took down a couple of buildings at the public safety building property. We've taken down a building down in South Main Street that was vacant, Court Street. So a lot of these, I'm sorry, the Comcast is 1.2. 580,000 is vacant abandoned.
Okay.
I need my glasses, I don't have them.
So you're saying that we also use these monies for demolition purposes?
Correct. Demolition or overtime for our public property staff to go out and board up the buildings, plywood, nails, screws, things like that.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? Motion has been properly made in second to reauthorize. All those in favor of recommending this favorably? All those opposed? It carries. Thank you, sir. Number 10.
Number 10, ordered that the City Council reauthorize the Economic Development Revolving Fund for FY25 for the purpose of maintaining said fund. This was actually put on the agenda as an error. In error, there is no fund.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to table this because we did not create an economic development revolving fund. It was tabled in ordinance last year. So it's motion to table.
A motion has been properly made in second to table this item. All those in favor of its tabling? All those opposed? It's tabled. Number 11, sir.
Item 11, ordered that the City Council reauthorize the roadway design and construction revolving fund for the purpose of maintaining said fund. The fund shall receive the receipt of payments of fines and fees for engineering, design, construction, and paving of projects. Expenditures from the roadway design and construction revolving fund shall be made on the authority and direction of the Brockton Department of Public Works Commissioner, provided that no more than $1 million may be so expended without further appropriation from the roadway design and construction revolving fund during fiscal year 25. The Brockton Department of Public Works Commissioner shall comply with the reporting requirements of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and 1/2. Invited DPW Commissioner Patrick Hill, Mayor Robert Sullivan, CFO Troy Clarkson.
Good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening, councilors. So this fund was established a few years back based on a shift in policy when Eversource Gas purchased Columbia Gas. Rather than duplicate efforts in the paving world, we started accepting money for streets that we were asking them to go into based on our paving schedule. Rather than have them go in and pave their portion of the road, we would take money from them and put it into this account. Eversource had a different policy than Columbia. Columbia used to allow us to take that money and then shift it to another street so that we could pave a whole street as opposed to half a street, which is what they traditionally do when they lay a new gas main. Eversource has since shifted back to Columbia's policy. So we haven't taken any money yet, but I do expect a pretty significant amount this year for Warren Ave and North Main Street.
Councilor Farwell.
Just briefly, councilors, and this has nothing to do with Mr. Hill or this particular department, but I'm uncomfortable with the $1 million. I can't think of anything more important to all of us, especially the ward councilors who get constant complaints about needing to repave streets, construction, reconstruction of streets. By putting aside $1 million without further appropriation from the council, we've basically given up any oversight over how that money is being spent. And I would be perfectly comfortable with $250,000 because I think there may be times when the DPW has to act expeditiously on a project. But to just say that we're going to put $1 million or we're going to allow $1 million to be spent without the council knowing what's going on, how it's going to be spent, where it's going to be spent, I really feel we'd be abdicating our responsibility to provide oversight over not only the money, but the areas in which the DPW intends to expend these funds. So I'll allow debate if the chair can allow debate, but I would be making a motion to amend this to $250,000. And then obviously, if more monies have to be expended from that account, the DPW commissioner and the CFO can come before us and present the information, indicate why the money is needed, and we can certainly approve it, and I'm sure we would. But that, I don't know of another department in the city that has a $1 million largesse, if you will, to expend for a particular purpose without having any council input, any council oversight, or even any council knowledge of how the money is going to be spent. So I'll make that motion in a couple of minutes after other people have spoken, if they wish to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Thompson?
Just a point of information on that. From my understanding, this revolving fund was established via ordinance. Would amendment to the revolving fund also have to be done via ordinance? If, Mr. Clerk, if you could answer that?
That's a good question that I can't answer right now. I'm going to have to talk to Shannon in the morning because it is an ordinance. I'd have to see what the ordinance says, but we could make the amendment, or we could put it through tonight, and final vote wouldn't be till next week. I can get an answer from our attorney in the morning and make the adjustment at the full council meeting before final vote.
Mr. Chairman, I would not object to that. I would not object to sending this up to the council level and then having the clerk determine if in fact.
Because it is a good question.
Giving it the time to be.
I believe we could
figured
make, you could make the motion here, but I would want to check with our attorney first.
Okay, right, because just my understanding, this is, we created this via ordinance.
You may not be able to
Potentially
change
would have to amend it via ordinance as well.
I would have to check that in the morning.
Okay. And then secondly, just on my question to Commissioner Hill, I know you briefly mentioned that there's very few funds in this revolving fund right now due to limited capture of Eversource monies. You did say that we were essentially going to be coming into soon some additional monies due to the paving on North Montello Street and North Main Street. I know this is not in my ward, but it's one of those things that people always ask me about due to the condition currently of North Main Street. Could you give us and the city a time frame on when that paving should commence?
So we're actually just waiting on confirmation from the paving contractor that the contractor who did the road digger construction is using, which is T.L. Edwards, on a schedule, but they're shooting for mid to late June.
Okay.
On North Main Street.
Great. And then secondly, I know Eversource has done additional paving, additional gas pipe laying throughout the city. The east side, Ward 5, actually has a few streets still with that 3-foot temporary patch. Could you tell us a time frame of when those streets should be paved?
Those streets will likely be paved sometime in June as well.
Okay.
Typically what they do is a few weeks before they come in, they'll send us a list and we post those lists online so that people know.
Okay. Once that's list posted, if you could send that along so I could inform the
Absolutely.
community.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Durenencourt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Pat Hill, I just want to, say this publicly, since I started, in January, you have been nothing more than effective. I mean, obviously, I'm a big critic when it's come down to people not getting back to me, but in regard to this particular issue, I just want to say this publicly. So you have been nothing more than, respectful, effective, and I cannot recall one time that I called you or text you whereby you did not get back to me. So I trust your judgment, I trust your administration, and I trust your ability not just to request money, but to use them effectively on behalf of our resident. And I would be more than happy to support this. And I think among all the folks who have been coming here, you are one of the people that I can honestly say that you truly take your time to think about our resident in terms of your job descriptions. And with all the interaction, we have been having, some of the tough calls that I receive about people who have been complaining. And when I pick up the phone and I called you, and I know when I called for a reason. And your response have always been nothing but, I'll see what I can do. And when you see, I'll see what I can do, you always do something. So, I just want to say this publicly, to acknowledge how awesome you and your staff are working for the city. And so far, I have nothing else to say. And I think most of us know that if I do have something to say, that I will say it. But, I feel like, I have an obligation not just to go after people when they are not doing a wonderful job, but also acknowledge, those of us who are working tirelessly on behalf of our residents. So I would be more than happy to support this. I have no issue with it whatsoever. And obviously, I can only speak for myself. But like I said, I admire your leadership, and I know that our residents are in good hands. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor, his head is already big enough as it is. So.
Mr. Chairman, I don't do stuff like that. And if I do this, and I'll tell you this, if I may, I got a call from a resident, Ward 1, pounding me. I'm not going to say any name, pounding me about something very small. And I didn't really know what to do and how to approach the situation. And I called Commissioner Hill to explain the situation. Your response was, I got you, Counselor. Give me 24 hours. In 24 hours, what the person was looking for was there. And I was amazed because I didn't know that we have the ability to make those requests And when I saw that, which I called you, and I said, well, thank you so much. And the person, asked me if, she can talk to him. And I said, I will talk to him for you. So for me personally, for the past, how do I put this, 2 terms that I've been on this council, this was the first time that I make a phone calls whereby he could have said, hey man, listen, I'm sick and tired of your calls because we were talking a lot during the week. He said, give me 24 hours and I will see what I can do. And you did. I'm not gonna say what you did, but he did on behalf of our residents. So I'm not trying to make his head bigger, but I know you are doing a wonderful job. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the time.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
Motion has been properly made in second. All those in favor of this recommendation?
No more compliments?
It carries.
That's all you get.
Thank you, councilors.
Item number 12, order that the City Council reauthorize the Transportation Program Revolving Fund for FY25 for the purpose of maintaining the transportation of residents ages 60 and older in the City of Brockton. The Transportation Program Revolving Fund shall receive the receipt of payments of donations and fees for transportation. Expenditures from the Transportation Revolving Fund shall be made on the authority and direction of the Director on the Council on Aging, provided that no more than $500,000 may be so expended without further appropriation from the Transportation Revolving Fund during FY25. The Director of the Council on Aging shall comply with the reporting requirements of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and 1/2. Invited the Director of COA, Janice Fitzgerald, Mayor Robert Sullivan, CFO Troy Clarkson.
Councilors, I heard from the Director of the COA, Janice Fitzgerald. She has a prior engagement. She couldn't be here, but our CFO is here in case you have any questions on this. Councilor Farwell.
I'm just curious as to, donation speaks for itself, but what payments would we be receiving that would go into that account, if you know, Mr. Clarkson?
I do, Counselor, and this is a newly created fund, so there is currently no balance in the fund as of today. But I believe the intent when Janice asked that you create the fund was if there were any fee-for-service trips, any transportation trips that were taken with the bus that we provide at the COA, that those monies would go into this fund so that they could be recycled and used for other issues at the Council on Aging.
Okay, I think 500,000 may be a fairly robust anticipated amount, but you never know.
I think you're correct, but it's good to aim high, I suppose.
It's
yeah.
worthwhile to have access to a little bit. Thank you, Mr. Clarkson. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? Motion would be nice.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
A motion has been properly made in second to recommend this favorably. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? It carries. Number 13, sir.
Item 13, ordered that pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 14, and the City of Brockton Ordinance 2-157, the City of Brockton hereby accepts the lease agreement entered into with U.S. Bank Equipment Finance. Said lease agreement is for a 3-year term, July 2024 through June 2027. The mayor is authorized to execute any and all documents excuse me, necessary in connection with said lease agreement. Invited interim school business manager Patricia Boyer, Mayor Robert Sullivan, CFO Troy Clarkson.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Farwell.
Mr. Chairman, this is for the lease of 40 copy machines. It would require a 2/3 vote of the council, but I've asked to have an inventory made of the school department warehouse. We really don't, as a council, know what's being stored there, what durable goods may be there, copy machines, fax machines, desks, tables. It just seems prudent to me that before we lease some of this equipment, let's get an inventory of what we have. Let's know where we are. If nothing else, it might be equipment that could be sold to bring revenue into the city. So for that reason, I'm going to move that we postpone this to a future Finance Committee meeting at the discretion of the chair. And the reason I'm wording it this way is I don't know when that the requested inventory will come in. I know the clerk has requested it, but I have no idea how quickly the school department will be able to get that information to us. So, motion to postpone to a future finance meeting at the discretion of the chair.
Second.
Do you have anything to say on the motion, Mr.
No, I was aware of the information request, and I will certainly work with the interim school business manager to get the response as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Claxon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Second on that?
Yeah, we did.
We did, okay.
A motion has been properly made in second to postpone this item until a future meeting once we have the inventory of the merchandise that currently exists within the school department. All those in favor of postponement? All those opposed? It carries. Thank you, sir.
Item 14, ordered that the following named sum be and the same is hereby transferred as the same was submitted by the mayor as follows. Transfer of $7,947,925 from certified free cash to the Chapter 324 supplemental reserve. This transfer will replenish the Chapter 324 reserve after it was depleted in order to cover the school deficit. Invited Mayor Robert Sullivan, CFO Troy Claxon.
Mr. Claxon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as you recall, back in December, when you appropriated $18 million to cover the school deficit, one of the sources of those funds was our Chapter 324 reserve. The Chapter 324 reserve was set up when Chapter 324 of the Acts of 1990 was created, and one of the requirements of that fund in that special act was that the city put money away into that fund every year. So as of December of last year, we had accumulated this amount in the fund and used it to help address the deficit. As you all know, we've been working very closely with the Commonwealth, with the Lieutenant Governor, with the Secretary of Administration and Finance, and with our partners at the Department of Revenue to try to create some long-term stability, but also to ensure that we could balance next year, fiscal year 25's budget. The mayor will submit to the City Council a budget appropriation order, which is the actual legislative act of the budget, tomorrow. So your first glance at that will be at your meeting next Monday. As part of that balanced budget, we do intend to use this $7.9 million, but this was made available because working with the Department of Revenue, they were able to recertify our free cash to make this amount available to us. This step in the process is designed to essentially buy us some time. We are taking the money from certified free cash, asking you to put it back in the Chapter 324 reserve. You will see during your budget hearings, we'll ask you to take that money back out and use it to balance next year's budget. But this step is designed to address the language in Chapter 324, so we are in effect replenishing the fund and satisfying that requirement to replenish the fund before we use the money to balance next year's budget. So there's still some question, and we're working, having discussions, ongoing discussions with the DOR and with the administration about specifically what that language requires us to do in terms of replenishing the fund. But this step buys us time to continue those discussions and to address the replenishment long term.
Council Fowler.
Colleagues, forgive me, I know I get very wound up about financial issues, but this is a very significant accomplishment. The fact that Mr. Claxon and the mayor were able to go to DOR and DOR agreeing to another recertification of our free cash, which usually only happens once a year, made this money available. And because this money is now available and we're going to put it back in the 324 reserve account, this $7.9, almost $8 million is going to be a huge benefit to us in fiscal year 2025. And so I really think I know government takes a lot of knocks, but I think in this case, you got to give credit to the mayor and to Mr. Claxon and to our partners at the Department of Revenue for allowing the city to do this. This doesn't wipe off our obligation, but to make $8 million roughly available is a very significant accomplishment, and I don't want it to go unnoticed. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. If I may respond, Mr. Chairman, because I think the counselor is correct. This was, but for our partnership with the DOR and the ability to use this money to balance next year's budget, we would be seeking state intervention. And the budget that the mayor will file with you tomorrow is a balanced budget. And 30, 60, 90 days ago, we weren't sure. In fact, we were fairly certain we wouldn't be here being able to talk about a balanced budget. So I think I was trying to be understated, but I'm glad that the counselor brought up, because it is a big deal. The fact that we were all able to work together, and the administration and again the DOR deserve a huge amount of credit for working with us. We really were a team, and we were able to come up with some solutions, and I'll speak in detail about those solutions at your budget hearings. But being able to stave off state intervention will pay dividends for this city for years, perhaps decades to come. So I'm very pleased to be able to stand before you with this solution in place.
Thank you, Mr. Clarkson. Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening again, Mr. Clarkson. So was the certification of free cash, was it just this 7.9, or what was the total certification of the free cash by DOR?
So the previous certification of this year's free cash was $4 million. We used $1 million of that, I believe, back in December to address the deficit. $2 million of that is embargoed. That was money from marijuana receipts that the guidance from the Commonwealth had shifted on how we should handle that money. Right. So that money will eventually go into is in a special revenue fund for use only consistent with the ordinance that you passed on the use of marijuana fees. So there's approximately another $1 million, and that will be part of the whole budget package that you'll see to balance the budget.
And this is fiscal year 24 funds, or for the free cash, is it?
Fiscal year, this current year's certified free cash, correct.
Okay. And so this is our total then, the 7.9 plus that other $1 million from earlier.
That's it.
So we generated a little over almost $9 million in free cash.
Yeah.
Outside of those receipts that we used before, correct?
So the overall number was much larger than that, but each year in every municipality, when free cash gets calculated, there are reductions based on revenues, grants that have been received, but maybe the applications haven't been filed in time, or money hasn't been received, or if there are funds that have a negative balance. So when you look at the actual free cash calculation, and I think I had provided it to you, but I'll gladly do it again, there were additional reductions to the free cash for some school funds that had negative balances. There was also reductions for funds that were due from the federal government for the Brockton Redevelopment Authority that hadn't quite been applied for yet. So we're working those out as well. So the overall starting number was higher than that, but the net number that we finally received was $4 million. And then the state recertified this 7.9 as part of the process. What preceded this recertification was hours that we spent with the DOR, going over our current budget situation, looking at our revenues, the kinds of reports that I share with you, we shared with them. So it was the result of many hours of work.
Okay. Secondly, when we have to, again, replenish this account, is that has to be done in fiscal year 25, right? Or?
So that, if you look at the language of Chapter 324, the specific language that relates to this reserve fund, I'm speaking as a municipal government and municipal finance professional, not as an attorney, but I think the language is open to interpretation as to how rapidly and how much the fund needs to be replenished. And we were having discussions about that. But when this occurred, it relieved us of having a conclusion or reaching a consensus for this year because we're able to replenish the fund. But those discussions will be ongoing to really get an answer to that question as to how quickly or how much the fund can and should be replaced.
Understood. So potential replenishment may not mean the full amount.
May not.
And within a year may not mean the fiscal year.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Anybody else?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
A motion has been properly made in second to authorize the transfer. All those in favor? All those opposed? It gets referred favorably. Mr. Clerk.
Item 15, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $4,932 from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency Homeland Security Grant Program to the Brockton Emergency Management Agency. Excuse me. Invited Emergency Management Director Stephen Hook, CFO Troy Clarkson. I did hear from Mr. Hook.
Yeah,
He
we
could
did.
not make
Yeah.
it tonight.
Yeah, we did hear from Mr. Hook that he couldn't be here tonight, so Mr. Clarkson.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. In my prelude note that I sent along to you yesterday, I did provide you a link to this grant program, this Homeland Security grant program. I think that tells the tale, but if you have any questions, I will try to answer them.
Motion to
We like when
recommend
money
favorably.
comes in.
Second.
A motion has been properly made in second. All those in favor? All those opposed? It gets recommended favorably. Next one. Next.
Item 16, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $51,480 from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency Emergency Management Performance Grant to the Brockton Emergency Management Agency. Invited Emergency Management Director Stephen Hook, CFO Troy Clarkson.
Mr. Clarkson.
Again, councilors, I did provide you some background on this in my memo yesterday. So that does provide some detail to that grant program, but if I can, I'll answer any questions.
Any questions?
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
A motion has been properly made in second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? It gets recommended favorably. Number 18, sir.
17.
17.
Ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $147,500 from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities to the City of Brockton Planning Department. Invited Director of Planning and Economic Development, Rob May, CFO Troy Clarkson.
Mr. May.
Good evening, councilors. I'm here to inform you that and request for your permission to accept a grant from the Commonwealth Department of Livable Communities, Secretariat of Livable Communities, and that will allow us to begin master planning in the Montello neighborhood. As you might know, we've just finished up a neighborhood plan in the Campello area. It's been transmitted to you, working with Councilor Nicastro and Councilor Griffin. And we look forward to discussing that with you in more detail, but this will start the same process in the Montello neighborhood. It's long overdue.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
A motion has been properly made in second. All those in favor recommending it favorably? All those opposed? It carries. Thank you, sir. Now 18.
Now 18. 18, ordered that the City Council authorizes the acceptance and expenditure of the total grant funds in the amount of $50,000. The funds will be used for the renovation of tennis courts into basketball courts at the Davis Elementary School Park area from the Department of Conservation and Recreation to Brockton Public Schools. Inviting Acting Superintendent Dr. James Cobb or his designee, CFO Troy Clarkson.
Well, I guess Mr. Cobbs isn't here, so Mr. Clarkson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a ton of information for you on this, but it does, I believe this is an earmark, and it is, as stated, to provide renovation of tennis courts into basketball courts at the Davis Elementary.
Motion to recommend favorably.
Second.
A motion has been properly made in second to recommend it favorably. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? It carries.
Thank you.
No 19?
I have no 19.
You sure? councilors, that is the end of our agenda, I believe. Does anybody would like to, no recognitions? Everybody wants to?
Just a reminder, the next week's meeting is Tuesday.
Yeah, I have that in here. I just want to make sure that we all are aware that next Monday is actually a holiday. You're all encouraged to walk on the parade, and then we'll be here on Tuesday for our regularly scheduled council meeting. So I'll see you all at the parade.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Having absolutely no further business for the folks and the people of the city of Brockton, this meeting is adjourned.